Yo, 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 what's going on? I am your host, Vibrant, and this is The Vibrant Truth. You see the title, Communication. Can men have real communication? Are men afraid of real communication? Well, I'm going to answer those two questions right off the bat for me. Yes and no. Yes, I am afraid of real communication. No, I don't have real communication right now. Is it something that I desperately need to work on and try to work on? Yes. Do all men have this problem with communication? No, not all. Most do. I'm one of the ones that have problems with communication. But is it that most men choose not to communicate? Or is it that they're just highly uncomfortable with communicating? And I'm not saying just a specific type of person or sex that they're uncomfortable communicating with. Just in general, most men are uncomfortable with having real deep communication. Most men are afraid of feeling vulnerable because if you're from that era where you was a child that it was wrong for a guy to show emotion or a guy to be vulnerable, then that's the main issue right there. As far as for me, I wasn't part of that era, but I did come across a few situations where I was told it's not appropriate for a man to show emotion. It's not appropriate for a man to cry. It's not appropriate for a man to verbalize his thoughts, his feelings, and wants. I ran across a couple of those situations. Did it help mold my out views on real communication? A little bit. Life experiences did most of that for me, but those few older men in the family, yeah, it steered me in a direction to where being vulnerable was an uncomfortable feeling for me. Being vulnerable was a unwelcomed feeling. And I feel like in a way it shouldn't be based off of if you're a male or a female, could you show or should you show emotion or communicate or have a certain level of communication. Communication for men is a much harder hurdle to overcome than anything else someone can throw at a man. And I say a man because, like I said, a lot of men was in that era, the 60s and the 70s, early 80s as well, that a man's not supposed to communicate. A man is just supposed to be the provider, be strong, be the backbone, and keep moving on. Like I said, I have some of those males with that view in my family. That was passed down to myself as well as my brother. Men are to be strong. Men are to hold their thoughts, wants, and emotions and needs in. Men are never supposed to be vulnerable. Few situations I've come across that when it came to male versus female in the family. I know acquaintances that still feel like that till this day. I'm not going to say that I don't want to communicate or I don't need to communicate. It's a hurdle that I'm really trying to get over. But at the same time, I'm noticing that it's not just men anymore. There's some females out there that don't like communicating as well. They don't want to say certain things because they feel like it's going to be used against them or it's going to make them overly vulnerable. Or it's just a severe trust issue. So, so, what I feel is it's nothing wrong with communicating. Is it nerve wracking? Yeah, it is. Is it, an uneasy feeling? Yeah, it can be. But at the same time, it's needed. At the same time, you can't go through life without it. And there's people that try. I try to communicate as least as possible, and that's an issue. That's an issue of minds, a personal issue that needs to be corrected, needs to be worked on. Everyone has a comfortability level. Everyone has a box, a window, whatever you want to call it, that they feel comfortable in, and they don't want to leave that box or that circle or open that door more than they feel they should have to. But sometimes when it comes to communication could be the difference between a good and a bad outcome. It could be. And I know when I say that, I'm preaching to the choir because I don't take my own advice. But like I said, this is a show about learning. So if I'm learning things as I'm going along and I'm sharing it with you guys, then I'm learning about myself as well still. A lot of people are not going to see problems with how they are or how they conduct themselves until they're ready to see how they conduct themselves. Like a person can tell you until you're blue in the face, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's why this happens, that's why that happens. If you don't see it and if you don't believe it, then nothing's going to change. But communication can be all the difference between a good outcome and a bad outcome. And took 35 years for me to actually grasp that scenario, but hey, I'm grasping it now. Better late than never, right? So, this was also a Twitter subject because I didn't have nothing thought up, so I just went with Twitter situations. So, is it right that a female communicates and she has to force the male to communicate? I don't think it's right. But at the same time, I don't think the men are doing it for the reasons that the female think that the men is doing it. Most females feel like men don't communicate just because they don't want to. And there's one or two females that, there's one or two males, excuse me, that actually are like that. That just don't communicate because they feel they don't have to, or they feel they don't want to. But 99% of men, and I'm over exaggerating, I'm saying 99% because that's the number that came to mind, but it's probably closer to 75%. Yeah, we're going to do 75%. That sounds better. 75% of the males that feels vulnerable communicating, it's not because they want to be macho or they want to be assholes. It's because communication is kind of shaky ground to most men. Now we're coming into a different era where now it's getting taught that if you're a male, it's okay to communicate. So you're getting a lot of the newer generation that's more communicative and more verbal and more, able to have conversations about certain things because now it's getting taught that it's okay. It's okay to talk about your wants, desires, and how you should be treated and how you feel and everything like that. It's okay to be vulnerable from time to time. That's getting taught more and more nowadays. But like I said before, I don't really think that it's more of a, oh, I don't want to communicate. You have no right knowing anything about me. Versus, I'm afraid to let you know too much about me because I don't know what you're going to do with this information. I don't know what's going to get out, what's going to stay in, how you're going to use it against me. Are you going to use it to control me? Are you going to use it and to help build me up? Are you going to use it to help tear me down? It's more of that, and it's a self issue. Has nothing to do with the person. It's a self issue. I don't really want to call it a self mental issue because I don't really think it's 100% mental, more of so on the emotional side. So I don't really think or feel that it's a mental degradation of I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that. I think it's more of a fear. I'm going to say I think it's more of a fear. A lot of people have fear of communicating, like really, really communicating, because it's taught to believe that if you communicate and a person hears something they don't want to hear, then it's just gonna end bad. So I feel like a lot of people just choose the path with the less resistance and don't communicate until eventually it becomes an issue. And then they have to sit and think and wonder to themselves, is it better for me to just communicate and have this argument, or should I still stay quiet and have this argument? So it becomes a double-edged sword because you want you want the issue to go away, but the issue is you don't communicate. So it's either you have a war with yourself or you have that uneasy conversation every now and then about you not communicating. I chose the wrong road for a long time. I'm starting to veer into the right part of the road. Not to say that all my time on the wrong part of the road is going to be wiped clean and forgotten when I get on the right road. But I'm hoping once I veer onto the right part of the road and I stay on the right part of the road, it becomes easier for people to realize that I know I made mistakes. So I feel like if you can put your insecurities in check enough to figure out that communicating is not as bad as it seems, then I think communication is not really that bad of a thing. I feel like I don't know what I feel like. I pretty much said everything I had to say on this subject, so I don't know. I guess two bad videos back to back. Let me see if I can liven this up. See if I can get a guest up here. See if I can get a guest up here. But yeah. To the one person that's watching, hi. It says I have a viewer on Twitch. Let's see. I highly doubt it's an actual person. Hi. So basically, the whole end of spectrum with communication is simply I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't I wanna say something but I don't want to word it wrong. So I'm just gonna say this. Communication can be a very useful key. It can be a very destructive thing at the same time. Communication is, always has been, always will be a double edged sword. But at the same time, it's also needed to rectify situations. It's also needed to be understood. Communication is needed for an understanding between two or more parties. Do I automatically feel like communication is 1000% everything? No, I don't. I feel like certain situations you can get through without communicating in depth about things. Just giving a general opinion or a thought on a subject should suffice. But there are people out there that want in depth communication about every situation. And that's fine, that's who you are. But you shouldn't expect to get in depth communication about every situation from every single person because every single person don't believe that deep communication is needed in every circumstance. Just like every person that feels like deep communication is not needed in every situation shouldn't expect other people to think like them because everyone has different opinions and everyone thinks differently when it comes to opinions. I mean, when it comes to communications. So, what I feel is more than enough communication. Another person might feel like it's not enough communication. Another person might feel like it's the right amount of communication. Another person might feel like it's overkill. Everyone has a different comfortability level with communication. I know I'm not comfortable going up to people telling them when they did something that offended me. I'm not comfortable with that. So, with me not being comfortable with that, I let a lot of things just go. And then things build up, and then I just lash out at people that have nothing to do with nothing. It's something that I have to work on. I'm not comfortable with spilling my guts out to just any and everybody. I've never been, and I probably never will be. I have different levels of communication. I have what I want to tell you, I have what you need to know, and I have everything that I feel comfortable telling you, I'll tell you. Those are the three different levels of comfortable I have with communication. I've been like that for since I could remember, and I'm just now realizing that it's something that I need to change. So for 35 years, I've been thinking that the way I've been should be the way I always am. But that comes with conditioning. So, yeah, I, like I said in my previous videos, I'm not a very talkative person. I'm not a very outgoing person. I don't believe that telling you my life story or part of my life story within the first 3, 4 months of me knowing you is something I'm ever going to do or something I think would make possible, plausible sense. I'm not going to tell you when I'm upset. I'm not going to tell you when I'm sad. I'm not going to tell you when I'm depressed. It's just how I am. Do I need to work on that form of communicating? Yes, I do. I don't communicate with much of anybody, and that's an issue. I know it's an issue. It's an issue I'm trying to work on diligently. But at the same time, it's who the fuck I've been for 35 years. So, yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with that. I will say this though. For men to be men, we have more fears and insecurities than a woman could ever build up. And that's facts. Men have more fears and insecurities than women. And that's not my opinion, that's facts. There's a lot more that men are insecure about than women are. We're just better at hiding it. I mean, some men might disagree, some men might agree. Some men might say, "What the fuck is he talking about?" But we all know men have more insecurities than women, which is why it's been taught that it's not okay for a man to show vulnerability because men have more insecurities than females. Most females don't give a fuck who see them crying, who see them upset. If they feel it, they're gonna show it. That's not a weakness. That's strength. Because I know I do any and everything in my power to make sure I'm alone before I show any kind of upset emotion, crying and shit. Like, so Most people see that as a weakness. I see it as strength. Because if you can show your emotions and not be insecure that you're upset, not be insecure that you're hurt, not be insecure that you're sad, and not care who's around, that's a strength, not a weakness. There's a lot of things that women are insecure about that women shouldn't be insecure about. There's a lot of things that men are prideful for that men shouldn't be prideful for. I don't really fit on one end of the spectrum or the other. I'm not pro man, I'm not pro woman, I'm neutral. I believe everything a man could do, a woman can do. I believe that men and women can be equals on many more levels than men and women are equals on. I believe if a female can do it, it should be okay for a man to do it. I feel like if it's okay for a man to do it, it should be okay for a female to do it. It should be okay to communicate any and everything and you not have to worry that the situation is going to turn out bad because we're communicating. Communication is not always going to be roses. Communication is not always going to be nice words. But if we can get to a point where we could communicate with each other and not feel vulnerable, not feel lesser of a man, not feel lesser of a person for communicating, then I think a lot more issues could and would be resolved in a much better fashion. But at the same time, insecurity is getting away and people start to second guess and people start getting caught up in everything and but yeah, that's just how I see it with communication. But like I said, I don't really have much to say on it because I know I have a lot to work on when it comes to that. So I can't really voice on something that I'm still working on myself. But yeah, so at least this video was a little bit longer than 12 minutes. But that's going to be the end of this video. No one wants to come in and give their opinion or talk, so this is going to be the end of this video. And the next video I come back with will be a topic that I could talk about in depth. Or the next show I do will be with my brother. So, with that being said, either I'll have another topic or it'll be another show co hosted by my brother. We will see. Until then, I will bid you adieu. Be safe. Love one another. Laters. Alligators.